Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, or whatever you think you might be. But you better decide before you retire, because when you apply for Social Security, I hate to tell you, but there's only two boxes there, male and female. You might be waiting decades for the right box to check. Who knows? Who knows? This is Back to the Cave Part 1. And Back to the Cave is going to be for very hardcore cavers. What I'm going to be exhibiting here is Russell Burrows' first public speech that he gave in September of 1984 to the Old Northwest Corporation. It was a dinner meeting, and there's some questions there, and it's got Russell Burrows doing it. And I'm the only one, I suppose, that's got this recording. I don't think there's anybody else the world over that has it. And for the people who came here to see or hear Russell Burrows' first public speech, I'm going to be just flashing up artifacts, various artifacts on the screen while I'm recording, and just to keep something to look at. This is the new member of the family, Isis. She's a tortie, and she has a tortitude for sure. Don't you, girl? So, if you came here for the Russ Burrows speech, go ahead and click on the timestamp below to get there. And that way you can skip over my diatribe that I promised in my last video, Books for Sale Volume 1. And I want to explain why I took a year off. Through making videos and such, I always, even with my lectures, I tried to make each lecture better than the previous one. I tried to make each one of my videos better than the previous one, or more entertaining, or more scholastic, or whatever, but just better. And with the last video I did, America BC, Alphabets Galore, it was my hubris. I couldn't do or think of anything else that would be better than that, even though I had a couple of things on the drawing board, my dinosaur fossil videos series and some other things, but they would pale compared to that, because it is the primo ancient language tutorial for tablets found in what is called the Burrows Cave. And we have had, I look at this channel as mine and Paul's both, and there's been a bunch of people subscribe, but they don't watch. We don't get any views. There's no views. People aren't watching our stuff. So Paul says, man, yeah, go ahead, take your time off, take a vacation, and hit at it later. So why do people subscribe to this channel? I don't know. I have no clue. Is it artifacts? Is it Burrows Cave? Is it coins? Is it currencies? Is it books? Oh my gosh, books. Is it for scholastic intrigue? Perhaps, I don't know. But be that as it may, I've got this is part 1 of Back to the Cave, and part 2 I'm going to be showing some more of Russ Burrows, a phone conversation between he and I, and another snippet of something else. And I'm going to also be giving contemporary dialogue. That's going to be in part 2. But the story in short is, for the new people that have come, because we had a lot of new subscribers since last year, and I doubt very seriously if any of them had taken the time and effort to study any of the origin of what is now known as Burrows Cave. And for the past, well, since 1994, we have declared that Burrows Cave is actually the lost tomb of Alexander the Great. And it's not like, well, how could that happen? But not only Alexander the Great, the entire Ptolemaic dynasty, including Queen of Queens Cleopatra VII. Her name isn't Cleopatra here. In this tomb, her name is Cleopatra. So, and the world over, no one has challenged that. No one has found Alexander the Great or Cleopatra or any of the other Ptolemaic kings the world over. And we have been standing alone since 1994. And there is no other ancient archaeological site the world over that has more intrigue, more articles, more people doing lectures, and while most of them don't know jack beans. You can find all kinds of stuff on YouTube about Burrows Cave and interviews and this and that. They don't have a clue. And this goes back to 1925, when it was first discovered by Orville Lowry and with his 2 daughters. And so since then, it has been in many treasure books through the 60s, 70s, and early 80s even. And they say, Russell Burrows, discoverer of Burrows Cave. He didn't discover anything. He bought a metal detector and he got 2 treasure guide books. And he just compared the 2, and he found a place right over here about 3.5, 4 miles, and he just converged, and that's where he went. And that's where he found this tomb. It was in books, printed in many books. I'd say probably over half a dozen. And there's no site that's got more artifacts, more associated dead languages. I consider Egyptian glyph a dead language. All of the languages, except for Greek. There's a lot of Greek in here. But a lot of Punic, a lot of Latin. And that was what my previous video was more or less about. And you can see some of my Egyptian decipherments in my Egyptian series. And it was a no-brainer. Once the script was broken of who these people were, because their names are right on it, you got hundreds and hundreds of these artifacts where the guy's picture or the girl's picture or name's right there on it. So that is the story in short. And figure, well, how did it get here? How did it get here? It got here. That's the kicker. With one of Mark Antony and Cleopatra's missing sons from his, was one of their sons. He's missing from history. Alexander Helios, the insignia that you see, the Hele, the upside down V-I-I, that stands for Alexander Helios. That is his motif, his acronym, his initials, should you say. And so he brought it all over, probably about 1520 BC. And he just vanishes off the face of the earth. And what happens is, we see him on tablets here as a young man, as an old priest, as a warrior, very handsome dude. And his artifacts are in there. And I show hundreds and hundreds of artifacts in my artifact series. Plus a lot of intrigue with my animals, my cat, or cats, plural now, and the possums and the skunks that come and visit here. I've got all kinds of footage. Even though I hadn't put out a video in the last year, except for books on sale, I have had a lot of footage. I've recorded a lot of footage. Don't know what all to do with it yet, but it's coming about. It's coming about. And I also got my big cat back. He was real sick, and he ran off for 6 days, came back, and he hasn't had any seizures since. Maybe he found something out in these woods. He had to been right out here somewhere. That's where I saw him last, and gone. But he came back, and he's been a whole lot better, which is good. So without further ado, we're going to listen to Russell Burrows' first public speech. Now, some of it's a little grainy, but I'm going to put it in caption. I'm going to encapsulate the whole thing because I think it's important. I think people need to see this. And towards the end, where the questions and answers, it's real hard to hear. I may not be able to do all of them. So enjoy. I don't think that this one needs any commentary at the end, but it was recorded by Jack Ward in September of 1984. So let's have a listen. Thank you.
This is the 11th annual meeting of the Old Northwest Corporation, held at the holiday in September the 10th, 1984. I think the food is just about ready to be coming. So we'll wait for the food, and then after soon we eat, well, then we'll hear from the speaker. Thank you. Go ahead and eat. I'm not going to talk very long anyway. I'm hungry. Thanks, Jack, for the invitation. Thank you all for having me over today. I hope that it is fairly understood by everyone here that I do not claim to be a professional archaeologist. I'm strictly an amateur, and I won't stay that way. Granted, I have had an amount of formal training, but unfortunately that was incomplete, and so due primarily to the Korean War, which kind of sneaked up on me. The training and knowledge that I have acquired is therefore self-taught. I learned long ago that as long as I can visit the library, I can learn about anything I want to learn. It's amazing the knowledge one can pick up there. Now, the subject which I came over today, which I know some of you are probably wondering, I'll get this out of the way right away, as why I'm defacing or damaging or destroying a historical site. And I'll agree with you. That normally would not be something that I would want to do or would want to see done. However, when I first stumbled into this situation, this cave, I presented several of these artifacts to an anthropologist at a university which I won't name. And he was very baffled. He didn't know what they were. So in view of this and as a result of this, and even though one of them had a patina which was probably a 1/16 of an inch thick, he decided that they were probably a hoax. Someone had made them and placed them in the ground. Now, I don't know whether he was meaning they placed them in the ground for me to find or not, which would be all right. I mean, they didn't have to go to all the trouble. They could just give them to me. I don't like to crawl in that cave anyway. So at this point, I kind of backed away from the thing, not knowing for sure just what we did have there. About 6 weeks later, I received a letter from this gentleman telling me that he had spoken with an archaeologist at one of the major universities in the state of Illinois. And this archaeologist was and is an archaeologist there for the state and that college. By telephone description alone, and having never laid eyes on a single piece of this material, these artifacts, this gentleman was able to determine that these were pieces of art made by a cult in southern Illinois some 100 years ago, and then promptly hidden in a cave. And that kind of amazed me. I mean, how in the world, just by description, can that gentleman make a deduction such as that? And at that point, I said, to heck with it. Well, I didn't say heck. Anyway, I said, I'm going to go ahead and work this thing myself. And so I began to remove some of the artifacts, especially since I knew that eventually a coal company was going to be doing some core sampling in that area. And at that time, too, I didn't know just how extensive this thing was. There are 5 caves in this system. They are on a bluff, or in bluffs, which run in the north-south direction. They are adjacent to a navigable stream. And they are mainly filled with the loose material. Of course, it's not loose now, but it obviously has been washed down. I strongly suspect that this is as a result of a huge earthquake they had here, well, I think it was 1811, when the major rivers and such flowed backwards for a period of time. And several lakes, as a matter of fact, were formed at that period by that. So the majority of the artifacts that I have found have been in this fill, and this is done by probing and by sifting to find these pieces, which is kind of tough because a couple of places in there where I'm pushing mud with my nose and my rump's up against the ceiling, so it gets a little bit squeaky at times. And I'm not afraid of Collins. I'm definitely afraid of caves. Why I have a nerve to crawl in this thing, I don't know. I think I flipped my gasket somewhere. But the fill seems to me, and I've determined this by probing, it seems to me to range in depth of 3 feet to 9 feet in depth. And that is down to the cave floor. And I determined this by fastening together several screw-type rods and pushing them into the ground or into the fill until I reach the bottom, the bedrock or the floor of the cave. Then I can determine about how deep it is. There are also several grottos or shelves cut into the sandstone walls of these caves on which I have found several of these artifacts. Now my method is a simple one. Each of these caves has been mapped as far as I have been into it, and as I progress into it, then I map it. I take exact measurements as to where each artifact is found, with the exception, of course, of the ones in the fill, because they obviously have been just washed into there and they're away from their original position. So, you know, if I did this, I would spend all of my time doing that and nothing else. The larger pieces down at the floor and such that probably are too big, such as that big black head that's out at the museum now, I know that that was not moved, or most likely was not moved by this flooding. So I do map and locate these pieces, just in case some archaeologist one day wants to decide, well, maybe we better take a look at that. But then that brings us back to that point. I don't know what will happen there. The people who own the property have given me permission to explore these caves, remove any of these artifacts that I wish, do with them as I please. However, they do not want archaeologists, geologists, anthropologists, paleontologists, or anyone else in there digging holes. That's exactly the way they told it to me. They said, if this happens, we will promptly dynamite the thing shut, and that will be the end of it. And knowing these people, and I've gotten to know them very well, 2 years have been working this, they would do it. And I don't know if they would really wait till I got out or not. So I'm not going to antagonize them. I'm going to go along with them for a while anyway. And I've kind of gotten away from my notes here. That's usually the way I do this. As I said before, obviously the location of this can't be revealed at this time for some of the reasons I've just mentioned. And also the fact that there are collectors out there who would do anything, and I mean anything, to obtain a piece of this material. I've had them already try to follow me. I've taken them into the woods and promptly lost them. They may still be there, I don't know. But I've had a couple of guys follow me, and I've taken them back into these woods, and they're very thick and up and down and around, and you can't see where you are, and I've left them there. I guess they made it, I don't know. But I would have preferred to have seen this site properly explored, because I know that there are just too many things like this that are destroyed. But on the other hand, if I didn't do it, most likely these artifacts would have been destroyed with the core sampling and the subsequent work going on there, the heavy equipment and such coming in. I know some of these caves probably would have collapsed. Or something that might have even been worse than that, the people who are doing the work would probably have found them. And then instead of keeping these things together, they probably would have wound up all over the country, and gosh knows what would have happened with them. Now, does anybody at this point have any questions they'd like to ask? Throw at me? Yes, sir.
As a matter of curiosity and interest, what is your occupation?
What is my occupation? Yes, I'm a woodworker. I'm a woodworker.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
A woodworker. And the other is, as you discover these artifacts, do you evidently keep yourself under some kind of security arrangement? They're not exhibited in the area where you live.
No.
You keep them yourself or provide security for them.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. No, they have not. I gave up on those fellows with the decision by the guy who had not even seen these artifacts, but they were made by a cult. And I suspect he was talking of the Golden Circle, which was a cult of witches back at that period of time. Who was somebody else there?
When did you discover this? How long ago?
Oh, let's see, 2 years ago this past May. Yeah. Seems like forever though. Yes, sir. Well, I found Jack, actually, I didn't find Jack, nor did he find me. Another person who was involved in this, to a degree, had Mr. Ward over to take a look at some of these articles. And this person called me and suggested that I come over as he was coming over. That was, what? Yeah, a little less than a year ago. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
Did you have a big racket in the paper over there now?
Yeah, I kind of got roped into that one. Yeah. Anybody else?
Did you find these things by accident when you went into this cave? Or did you have an idea there might be something in the cave?
Well, that's a good question. Now, I'd like to say that through research, study, that I knew that these things were there. However, I wouldn't be exactly truthful if I did that. I found them quite by accident. I was looking for one thing, found another. The first of these caves I found, I stepped on a stone which was cut and balanced over a hole or an entry into a smaller cave, which tipped with me, and in I went. And my heart got big as a watermelon. Adrenaline was flowing enough so that, the bottom of this was about 8 feet down. When I hit bottom, I promptly bounced back up and was hanging on with my elbows on puff, puff, puff. And then it dawned on me, hey, what is this? So I dropped on in and took a look around, and this is when I really began to explore. The other caves have been found under shelves where they have been filled. One of them, the largest, was sealed with stones that were cut to fit much like a puzzle. I was almost 3 weeks getting that thing open. There was one key stone, which I finally located, and by removing it, then it was just a simple matter of opening it off, going on in. So yes, it was by accident. Sir? The one is, yes, but there's only one. That's the one I fell into. The others are horizontal. The largest of them now I've penetrated so far to a depth of 110 feet, with probably a down degree of probably 7 or 8 degrees. It's with the exception of the one, why they're so far all horizontal. No, ma'am, it was sealed purposely. These stones were fitted into the entry of the cave, which brings out a very interesting point. Why is it filled? So obviously there's another opening to this cave somewhere. I've not been able to locate it yet, but eventually I will, I'm sure. Yes, I have found bones, and these have gone to a university for study and analysis. I don't know just when they will have a carbon-14 dating on them for me, but eventually they will have, and then we'll know on that.
What plans for the future do you have, Burrows?
Are you going to continue examining the site?
Well, at this point in time, I'd like to crawl up and hide. But, yes, I probably will work it until...
Cannot hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Question.
What was my plans for the future? Do I plan on working the cave? Yes, I do. And my plans now are to begin to place these artifacts in the Sons of Back Museum, or at least have Mr. Ward examine them and determine which ones he wants in the museum. Yes, ma'am. Yes, as I said, the largest so far, I've penetrated into 110 feet. So, yes, it's quite a large cave. Now, the young gentleman back there. Yes, that's how far into the cave I have gone so far. That's not the vertical shaft, no, that's horizontal.
Are the contents of the cave separated into categories? I mean, they put certain things in one.
No, actually not. They're it's pretty much a hodgepodge of these things. I wish that, I hope that if there are any more caves in the area, and I'm able to locate them, I hope they're not filled, because I would like to see for sure what's there without this, you know. So as of yet, I've not really been able to reach the floor except in, well, half a dozen places in these things. The material is of course very damp and dark and cold in there, and I don't like it.
When you found it, were you out just westering, or what were you just out wandering in the woods?
No, I was searching for a cave. Yes, but I was searching for what I believe to be an Aztec site in that area. So I meant when I said I was looking for one thing and found another.
Are you a caver? Do you habitually go down to the cave?
No, absolutely not. No, sir. No, I'm definitely afraid of caves. Yeah. Oh, the only way I can get in these caves and function is just kind of forget where I'm at and go ahead and do what I got to do and get out. You know. Ma'am? Well, I don't think if something happened, there'd be a vertical shaft pretty quick. I think I'd probably go straight up.
Are these caves the mud fill within the water level, or is the cave floor?
No, they're not at water level. They're above. They're above water level. I've not been able to obtain the geological map as yet. I sent for them quite a while ago, which was giving me a determination on the height, the elevation of the area they're in. But no, they're not at water level. That I do know. At least they don't flood during wintertime.
Where's your home, Mr. Burrows? Are you from Bridgeport or Albany or someplace over?
No, my home is in Albany. Originally, I'm from the East Coast. I kind of migrated. So, anybody else? No, they were cut and fitted. Yes, ma'am. They were cut and fitted, and it was very tight fit. I mean, they were precisely cut and fitted. But as I say, if you think of the entrance to this particular cave as the face of a clock, then just slightly 10 o'clock center. This is the point in which I found the keystone, which when it was removed, then it was a simple matter of taking them on down there. I did, of course, number them making a chart before I removed them. I numbered them so that I knew exactly how they would go back. So, and of course I did photograph it. Anybody else?
What is the basic type of stone?
Basic is sandstone. And the caves themselves are not man-made. They're not cut. However, on one of them, the lip above the entrance to the cave, when you go under the lip, if one should happen to turn over and look upward, then several inscriptions, scripts, pictoglyphs, hieroglyphs type thing are cut into the top of this cave, or this entrance to the cave, which is, well, it's a projection of stone which protrudes out from the lip of it into the actual entrance to the cave is 12 feet 8 inches.
Do you have any theories as to how this stuff wound up in this cave?
I didn't until I met Mr. Ward. I can, since I've seen these things, there are items in the cave which I have told no one about so far. I think it's pretty well cut and dried that these are items and pieces from the cultures of the ancient Libyans, Phoenicians, and Nubians, Egyptians, and I think Mr. Ward is much more knowledgeable in the period of time than I am. They've been here quite a while.
Was there any evidence of two pieces of figures on them, the dog head figure seated and the two people? With the god, one looks like a hand. And that would be Greek, or a Saturn paper. That would be Greek. That would be Egyptian. I don't know if there were coats out there, but there were lots of people. Is there any evidence that they might have fallen from the wall? They look.
That's what I'm wondering. Especially in the way that some of them are broken, and in the positions that I have found some of them, they look as though they had been just kind of pushed out from the wall like this. Well, of course, as to whether they are Greek or not, I don't know. I think that's Egyptian. That's the god Anon.
Because that's a common feature that you see in Egyptian mythology.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And the female figure with the bird head, same thing. You see this quite often. However, I'm not an Egyptologist, so.
We have another question back here.
The artifacts that you found so far, are they from native stones or are they from stone that might have been carried there?
Pardon me. No, they are not of the native stone. They're stone which they're material which I have never seen before. Never in my life have I seen material such as that. The white marble, of course, I have seen, but then again, this is Mediterranean, especially the pure white marble, which you just don't find in this area. In the United States, as a matter of fact, it's not found here. The black material, which is extremely dense, heavy, is a material I have never seen. Mr. Ward Jack informs me that it is a black quartz. So it's something I'm not familiar with. I would not sell them. I doubt seriously that a museum, I don't know if a museum can afford to buy them. Most museums have no money. At least they'll tell you this. They would like you very much to donate these pieces. And the museum over in St. Louis, the Natural History and Science Museum, would like me to donate some of the pieces to them. And of course, this is something that I intended to talk to Mr. Ward about sometime soon. But I think my feeling on it is, which doesn't amount to a hill of beans, is that these items should remain together if possible. I mean, it would not be, in my opinion, and again, that doesn't amount to much, these items should all be together in one display, instead of, say, part of the cheering in San, part in St. Louis, maybe some up in the Chicago Museum, Washington, right? Which we had, when this first began, a letter was sent with a description and photographs of these items to the Smithsonian Institute. Their information back to us is that they are not made or are not native to the North American continent, most certainly not to the Amerindian or the American Indian. So, but we've heard nothing else from them so far. Anybody else?
You're saying you brought something?
Yeah, it's I brought it in a plain brown wrapper. Thank you. In my IGA grocery bag, because I didn't have anything else to stick it in real quick. This is a plain piece of white marble, that plain here, and this is a Phoenician ship. Here are fish of some sort here around, and this seems to be a part of another ship here. You can see the animal head over here, and the oars. I have seen another ship which is much larger than this, that's got many more oars to it, is a type of ship that the Phoenicians came over here with. We're certainly pleased to have this, certainly thankful for it, but this more or less pins it down to the area from which it comes. And I might add about what is over there on the table. Those two pieces of white marble over there, one is the Anubis goddess, and she holds in her hand the anchor of life, which is, she's an Egyptian religious goddess. Then the other one, the one that looks like it's got a bird head, I don't know what the name of that goddess is, but she is with a satyr. And of course, you still see satyrs in Egyptian mythology. The one handheld stone has been deciphered, and the decipherment is there. There's 7 lines on that, and that has been deciphered, and one of those lines ties in to it says, great Nubian chief middleman, take to heart. Now the Nubian great chief middleman was Chief Ross, who came here in 726 BC, and is referred to on 2 gorgets that Albert Steffen found here that we have at the museum. So some of that is tied into that particular time. Now we don't know whether some of this was of a much later period or not. I doubt whether it would be earlier, but it would be probably later when, and we learned a little bit about their rituals and everything. This place, or the place where these were brought to, seemed to be a place for testimony. Now there's one head of the Sun King, that feathers like the Indian chief. On the card, it says that this is to be a place, put in a place where great men come to testify. And then the next line right in underneath that says it must be in a place that had belonged to rodents like a fox's den. Now that's on that one piece that was taken out. We have that at the museum. We have 3 pieces of black quartz out there that is extremely heavy. And we've had archaeologists and professors come from all over the United States now to look at these displays that we have here. They don't say anything about them except amazing, stupendous, startling, things like that. And I would imagine that they're going to leave it up to us to try to reconstruct some sort of a formation of what we think it is. We do know that these things were of Eastern hemispherical origin, and that their Egyptian script, that dial over there, is just got Egyptian hieratic script all around it, and I haven't been able to read it too good. The little pendant is Phoenician, very Phoenician script. It's from Spain, and likewise I'm not so good on translating Phoenician, but there's enough ancient Libyan script there that can tell me a little bit about it, and I'll keep working at it. I'm awfully pleased to have Russ Burrows over here with this, and we hope that we may be the recipients of a lot more stuff to come. I'll bring you a truckload. Wow, thank you. Thank you. Come on.
That's our old buddy Allahu Akbar. Well, that's a wrap. I think it's important to know how I got that recording. It was presented to me by June Elkin, Jack Ward's daughter, who was living in West Melbourne at the time when I lived in Melbourne, or Palm Bay, or Cocoa Beach, one or the other. And that it was presented on a cassette tape. Jack Ward had recorded it on a cassette tape, and they had it, and they gave it to me, and I transposed it maybe to DAT, and then from DAT to CD in like the early 2000s, 2004, 2005. So that's how it went. And I thought I'd lost the CD. I knew it was damaged, and I had preserved it from my fire in '08, and I thought it was gone forever. And about a month ago, 2 months ago, I was going through a tote of CDs and found it. And I'm like, oh wow, let's see if it plays. And sure enough, it plays. Now it's kind of grainy, but it's there. And that's how that works. And you're going to have to check out part 2. Part 2 is good too, and it's quite entertaining, I guess you could say. A lot of swearing in there that I'm going to have to edit out, and it's going to have a commentary on it also, and some of the antics and things that happened afterwards. And then it's got a little sniblet of Russell Burrows talking for a couple of minutes about our side over here, and what he makes up about it. It's just hilarious. I mean, he shoots himself in the foot every time he opens his mouth. He lies all the time, and he can't keep his lies straight. It's really funny. So at any rate, that's a wrap. Until next time, peace out, my brothers and sisters. So let's go down to the creek. I got his butt propped up a little bit here with a towel underneath his jeans, so he can kind of get a little bit better grip with his butt. How you doing, fella? Let's go check out the creek. Let's take this way down here. Hang on, buddy. Hang on. Hang on, buddy. It's a little bumpy here, and then we're smooth sailing. And here's the creek. Smells like dead fish, don't it? Well, it's a Thursday afternoon, winding down at work. We have some dignitaries coming into town. So the owner here where I work allowed me to show his artifacts. All of these are from the tomb in Marion County, aka Burrows Cave. There's a bunch of them here. Let's go to the other table. Here's some more here, real nice pieces. 37 very nice artifacts. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 Helios characters in here. Let's go one more down. There's a nice statue there. Oh, about 1.5 feet tall there. Several nice pieces. There's one here. There's a real happy character. See if he comes through. There he is, Mr. Halloween Man. Check that out. Huh. It's a good shot of him there. There's a couple more Eves in here too. There's a Helios right there. Some nice warriors. Right there's a Helios. Some more warriors. There's a Helios there. There's an old man. Cleopatra and Mark Antony's missing son from history. Here's another one of him. These guys, most of these guys are younger. Cool stuff. There's another Helios. Here's some with script. And this one here, you see it's covered with script. And let's turn it over. And the reverse of it's covered with script too. Nice collection. All kinds of little trinkets. Here's some fancy stuff here. And how in the world is somebody going to carve a piece that fragile with that much carving in it? And this one here is really cool. You can barely see it though. It's a lion. A nice lion with a sun at the top. Nice. And this is like super thin. It's so fragile. It's 1/8 of an inch thick. Might even be less. How did they scratch that on there? And so many, just so intricately carved. Amazing.